Good evening. It's Queer News Tonight. We begin by queering up breaking news. Hashtag I am a hooligan is the new LGBTQ battle cry after Russia and Ukraine. As the LGBTQ plus community watches the nightmare of Russia's invasion of another democratic nation, Ukraine, we all feel powerless in some way of what we can do about it. Putin has raised a new Iron Curtain and is trying to curtail all free expression and speech in Russia to manage the lies he is telling his people about what he is doing to the world.
It all seems so familiar with what LGBTQ is experiencing in the metaverse of Donald Trump, radicalism, Tallahassee, and other state capitals, our schools, book bans, and more. So last night, when an editor at state-run Channel 1 Evening News staged a simple and brave act, it told the entire LGBTQ community,
protest is simply standing up and voicing what is right and wrong. Being watched by tens of millions on the live broadcast of Russia's evening news, Marina Ostniakova rushed into the camera view holding a sign that read,
"No war, stop the war. Don't believe the propaganda. They're lying to you here." Moments later, the cameras turned away, but it was done. Russian news agency TASS reports she has since been detained.
Worldwide reaction is growing, including millions of social media posts and even congratulations from Ukrainian President Zelensky.
Public reports by the Russian government said the act is a strange word, hooliganism. We are the LGBTQ plus community, and by the way, we completely agree.
the fight for marriage equality is hooliganism. Hashtag I am a hooligan.
The fight for LGBTQ plus rights in schools is hooliganism. Hashtag I'm a hooligan.
The fight for trans healthcare is hooliganism. Hashtag I am a hooligan.
The fight during ACT UP, during the AIDS crisis, is hooliganism. I am a hooligan.
The fight at Stonewall and passage of the Equality Act is hooliganism. Hashtag I am a hooligan. And the entire LGBTQ plus community stands for Ukraine.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. It's devastating. And, you know, Putin wants to execute all the gays, and it's horrible. I can't imagine being in that kind of war zone where you have that extra target on your head.
They implemented this afternoon. I don't know if you've heard the news. This was done live last night. I read that this was comparable to only having NBC in Russia and everybody watching only NBC in Russia live when she did this. So tens of millions of people watched it. They've implemented a 7-second delay on the broadcast that took place today because they won't allow this to happen again.
You know, I think it's interesting. I think the word hooliganism, it's archaic to us, but I think it might lose something in translation. But this is the same charge in what they called Pussy Riot, the Russian group that was detained and arrested several years ago. They were arrested for hooliganism. And I just want to say, if you don't know what Journalists Without Borders does, go have a look at it. Pause this broadcast, have a look at what Journalists Without Borders stands for. It is holding up or doing the best it can to promote free speech and free journalism around the world. It is so very important.
Twitter, we were just talking about this before the show went on the air. Twitter is all ablaze over this, of course. And in the LGBTQ community, so many people are making the intersection of what we're watching in terms of trying to suppress speech and control society in Russia with what we're watching here to the LGBTQ community. You know, we've all talked about it. Students, book bans, don't say gay, and trans right organs, Idaho's that we're going to talk about in the show tonight. That it is so similar that it is an overt effort to control speech and thought.
Well, they're murdering reporters who were over there. They don't care that,
Yeah,
you know.
today was the first reporter that was lost during this war, and I think we all remember now that journalists, true journalists, are putting themselves in the front lines or uncovering these things. We get to share stories here, and there's people out there putting themselves in harm's way to bring us those stories.
You know, also last night there was an intersection to these two stories of what's going on in LGBT in America and what we're watching Putin and Russia do. Because the most popular thing that was watched over the weekend in Russia that had to do with America was Tucker Carlson. They're playing Tucker Carlson excerpts endlessly, translating it into Russia of how Americans are supporting what Putin's policies are. It's quite distressing. But we echo. We stand with Ukraine.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Well, welcome to Queer News Tonight, the world's first and only LGBTQ plus daily evening news. It's time to queer up the news. It's 8 p.m. Tuesday, March 15th, 2022, and we are literally out of the closet and into the headlines. So many of your important stories we're going to tell this evening on Queer News Tonight.
This is the world's first live daily LGBTQ evening news show, literally out of the closet and into the headlines on Queer News Tonight with Al Ferguson.
Thank you for joining Queer News Tonight. This is the world's first and only unedited live LGBTQ plus evening news show. Whatever happens, you will see it. Queer News Tonight is supported by viewers like you. We are part of the partnership between Happening Out Television Network and Hotspots Magazine. Hotspots is celebrating 36 years of the LGBTQ plus experience. We bring you the best of LGBTQ plus news, entertainment, and support of our community.
I'm your anchor at Queer News Tonight, Al Ferguson. Let's welcome anchor first, Sobourney Barnes. A true South Florida native, born and raised in Broward County to parents who found joy in public service. So is it any surprise she began working at SunServe, a local nonprofit agency that serves the LGBTQIA+ community. A graduate of Florida Atlantic University and Florida International University, Sobourney has been an advocate for LGBTQIA+ youth for almost a decade. Girl, how are you that old? I don't know. Through her work at SunServe. Welcome, Sobourney.
Thank you, Al. Let's welcome anchor Jeff Oliverio. He is a founding member and treasurer of the Hollywood LGBTQ+ Council, a unique community civic organization designed to unite the LGBTQ+ community in Greater Hollywood. The council recently hosted the inaugural My Hollywood Pride. He is also the chair of the 2022 National LGBTQ Task Force Gala, being held October 22nd in Miami Beach. I'm still going to hit you up for a ticket. Good evening, Jeff.
Good evening. Thank you for having me, and we'll look for your support for the Task Force Gala coming up in October. Let's welcome Cindy Brown. She is an icon in the LGBTQ+ community. She was an early organizer of Miami AIDS Walk, the White Party for Care Resource, and other major events. She has served as the executive director of the Miami-Dade Gay and Lesbian Chamber Foundation and LGBTQ Visitor Center. She is the founding executive director of Miami Beach Pride and currently serves as the program manager for Jewish Community Services LGBTQ Lambda Living Program for LGBT seniors. Good evening, Cindy.
Well, thank you for that wonderful introduction, Jeff. And now let's welcome anchor John Hayden. John's been a journalist for 27 years and now works for several South Florida outlets, including South Florida Gay News, covering politics, art, and the bar scene, mostly for the latest on Happy Hours. He spent much of his career covering the stupidity and scandals of Hollywood and interviewed nearly every big name in TV, movies, and music. John considers the time he had to sit and interview Shirley MacLaine after she yelled at him as the scariest 4 minutes of his life. Good evening, John.
Good evening, Cindy. And truth be told, I probably had it coming. We are the reporters for Queer News Tonight. And this evening, we begin with the queer headlines. The LGBTQ+ community in South Florida and across America is diverse. Our community across the world is vast. And here are the bullet points. of the queer news for today, Tuesday, March 15th. Today is also International Day Against Police Brutality, a day that is important to many in our community, but especially transgender people of color.
Well, let's begin by queering up the USA view. New poll shows 60% of all Americans oppose the Don't Say Gay bills. You notice bills. A new ABC Ipsos poll shows that 6 out of every 10 Americans oppose Don't Say Gay bills. Republicans were more likely to support the legislation at 61%, while 20% of Democrats and 35% of independents supported it. While support for such bills does rise with age, no age group showed a majority of support. The highest support was shown in those 65 and older, with 43% of respondents showing support.
Well, as
Good
people
news.
get older, then, the younger generations will be absolutely supportive.
I mean, I think what these polls show us is that if we had the same people voting who are answering polls, then these people wouldn't get elected that are passing these bills. So, don't answer polls, register, vote, and get active in your community so we don't elect people to pass these bills.
And by the way, proof of that is the last 4 presidential election cycles, the Republican nominee actually lost the popular vote, in some instances by millions of votes.
Right.
Fun fact.
Yeah, let's get rid of the electoral college after.
Well, even without the Electoral College, we'd still be a nation run by minorities. I mean, the way the Senate is set up as a co-equal branch to a slightly more accurately representative House of Representatives, and each state gets to do its own thing. And Wisconsin, I think I've used this before, but in 2018, their midterm, they had like 57% of voters voted for Democrats for the state legislature seats, but they only won 45% of the seats. So we are a gerrymandered country, and it goes. And I agree with you on the Electoral College. I'm just saying it's a bigger thing.
Yeah.
And that's completely what the situation is, not only for Wisconsin seats, but for the Supreme Court and for the national election, all the way down to the school board. And really, at the end of the day, over the last 20 years, Jeff's actively involved in a national task force. Equality Florida would say it, SAVE would say it, the HRC would say it. Over the last 20 years, our advocates in LGBT have rang the bell and rang the bell and rang the bell, while the Republicans have literally kicked the Democrats' ass, basically, and created this situation. And now we're just slogging up a hilltop to try to get to the top of the hill, but it's a lot harder.
Taking the high road. Democrats take the high road; they won't stoop. So
we do
I
come
think
back.
we need to stoop a little bit.
We stoop a little bit.
Stoop to their level.
I will gladly bend
Is that a
over
real
for the
word?
cause.
Yes. Get down on the
The good news. Let's not escape the good news in this story. This was brilliance of the labeling of Don't Say Gay. That was a brilliant move. So we stooped to accomplish that. And it started in this focus of it's kindergarten to 3rd grade, which does not exist sexually.
there's no-
So
They're
they
making
created
laws.
stuff,
Yes.
but they didn't do it for that. They did it to create the beachhead, the foot marker, so they can expand it in the future. They aren't even at majority in what they started with, which was the most obvious that they could do. So it's only going to get worse for them, and we can take solace in the fact that it's going to get worse for them. But we've got to keep the pressure up and stoop down to their level, right?
Right.
Well, now let's clear up more politics. Will grooming be the anti-LGBTQ word of the year? The term grooming has been gaining popularity for several years now when discussing the LGBTQ+ community. The phrase is defined as, quote, the action by a pedophile of preparing a child for a meeting, especially via an internet chat room, with the intention of committing a sexual offense. It is a term gaining popularity in conservative areas like Florida when discussing LGBTQ+ content in classrooms. The term has even been used by Governor DeSantis himself to describe opponents to the Don't Say Gay bill, and Queer News Tonight recently reported when the Lieutenant Governor of Florida used the term repeatedly in a tweet. First of all, somebody who really enjoys grooming their hair, I'm taking offense at this term. But this terminology is another dog whistle, and it's a dog whistle for the LGBTQ plus community.
Yes.
We need to be using our voices and coming out against these complete attacks on our community and putting us in the category of pedophiles, which is something that's dates back to the LGBTQ fight in the 40s and 50s. This is they need to go. They need to go.
They've always said horrible things about LGBT people, so I'm not surprised that they're trying to once again lump us in the pedophile bucket when
it's not even us.
It's not the LGBT community.
Well, it's all about how it's phrased. We talked a moment ago about don't say gay. What was the bill actually called? Parental rights.
Yeah, that's
So by voting against it or saying against it, you're against parental rights. That's what they're saying. And personally, the only gay grooming I want is on Queer Eye.
Exactly.
Well, let me tell you,
Why did everybody's head turn to Jeff?
Because his hair is amazing.
Because his hair sits over there and it mocks me.
Exactly true.
There's all kinds of grooming.
True. You know what's really sad about this? First off, I think the headline catches it right in terms of, is it going to be the anti-LGBT phrase of the year? As we move closer and closer to the elections in November, they're going to refine this and refine this and refine this. They're going to tell it 10,000 times and try to get uneducated or people not paying attention to go, oh, well, if you oppose us, you are a pedophile, which means we don't want to come right out and say pedophile, so we're going to use the term groomer, but we're going to say groomer 10,000 times to say you're a pedophile. That is doublespeak.
Right.
But it is a very technical approach to win their argument. It's interesting to me of what's going on. The only person worse than DeSantis in doing this is the lieutenant governor, who has come right out and said, opposition to my point of view means you're a groomer.
And a pedophile, don't forget that.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And I mean, my goodness, how offensive. But can you imagine George Bush in 2000 winning the election, Bush v. Gore? Can you imagine George Bush being associated with this kind of language in 2000?
He would never do.
No.
He would
Impossible
never
to consider it. Can you imagine John McCain being
Oh,
associated
Lord,
with this
no.
conversation in 2012? Something dramatic is happening. There
Trump
it is.
happened.
In 2016, when we opened the gate to allow the lion in, he abused and abused and abused. We talked about the abuse over and over. He's gone now, but here's his legacy.
Right. Exactly.
And his legacy is allowed these kind of people to take it even a step farther and worse. I think you coined the phrase for the phrase of the evening, to stoop
to their
even
level
farther. It's really a horrible situation.
I'm looking forward to the very first lawsuit being gay parents of a child in kindergarten through third grade who is humiliated in the classroom by the teacher and by the classmates because they're not allowed to show their family picture in the classroom.
Or teachers, the same.
Or teachers.
Yeah.
Right. To see how that one plays out. Let's get back to queering up the news. Let's queer up the world view. Court blocks same-sex marriage in Cayman Islands and Bermuda. On Monday, an appeals court in London sided with Bermuda and the Cayman Islands governments over a case that blocked same-sex marriage. The UK's Privy Council is the final court of appeals for several Caribbean islands that are British territories. It sided not only with Bermuda's government in making same-sex marriage illegal for a third time, but also found that queer people don't have a right to same-sex marriage based on the Cayman Islands Constitution. This is just ridiculous. I thought we were getting somewhere within, Caribbean communities and things like that, if I'm not mistaken. I think we spoke just last week about Jamaica and the progress they were making, and now this is happening.
I'm going to take a very unpopular opinion and say, well, I think marriage equality is an absolute human right. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, right.
I agree with this decision, and I'll tell you why. Because it's a slap back at colonialism. Why is a court in the United Kingdom having anything to do with the laws of Bermuda or Jamaica, or in this case, the Caymans.
Their territories.
They're territories, but I'm saying why these should be independent republics, and they shouldn't be turning to the United Kingdom for some. We're still dealing with our own colonialism issues in this country. Colonialism is a terrible thing, and while I don't like the outcome of this particular case, I think it's the right step to getting another country out of another country's business.
You know, it's interesting to me that what went on, noted in terms of your observation. What's another interesting observation of what has happened in Bermuda and Grand Cayman? You remember the cruise ship that was denied, the gay cruise that was denied Grand Cayman. You can't dock here because you're all gay. And 3,000 gay men could not get off the ship because of it. Grand Cayman and Bermuda have something in common. Do you know what it is? Old white money.
Oh, well, yeah.
Grand Cayman is not a African Caribbean dominated nation. It is a white nation. Bermuda is not a Caribbean nation, even though it's an Atlantic island. It is a white British territory. And old white men are making decisions going on in Grand Cayman and in Bermuda. And oh, by the way, and that was my connection. It's like, wait, we just talked about Tallahassee, and we just talked about the norms that are being violated by Donald Trump and the door he opened. And Donald Trump would be very welcome in Grand Cayman and Bermuda.
I'm sure he would.
And that's what we've got to get to. We have to figure out why these opponents are the opponents that they are, and stop railing against them and figure out ways to either onboard them to our point of view or get them out of our way. There's only two conclusions. We haven't come to that conclusion yet.
Well, now let's queer up trans rights. Idaho bill will make trans medical treatment punishable by life in prison. A bill approved last week by Idaho's House of Representatives adds medical care for transgender youth to a section of Idaho law already on the books that bans female genital mutilation. It adds language making it a felony either to perform gender-affirming surgery on transgender youth or to provide medication meant to block or delay the onset of puberty. The new language also makes either providing a child with gender-affirming care or transporting a child across state lines for such care a felony, punishable with up to life in prison. Representative Bruce Skog, the lead sponsor, said, quote, "This bill is about protecting children, which is a legitimate state interest. We do that all of the time. We need to stop sterilizing and mutilating children under the age of 18. This bill is not about the adults or adult trans community at all. It's about the children," end quote. I call bullshit.
No,
But you didn't mention what medical school did Representative Scott graduate from?
Did he get his GED or?
And for clarity, your observation, just to provide a clarity, the American Medical Association completely disagrees with the representative's position. American Medical Association says your observation is flatly not true. Flatly. There's no gray area. It's flatly not true.
And what's even more upsetting is that there's so many bills like this that are steeped in opinion and discrimination and straight up ignorance. Just like you said, you asked the question of, okay, what type of medical degree does this man have to say this? And then equated to, we just care about the children. I'm going to get on my little pedestal really quickly. You don't care about the children. You care about making a point and having your name out there. If you cared about the children, what you would do is look into what is the standard of transgender health care for children and how can we make it better? For me, this kind of goes not exactly on par, but it definitely does equate to the trans sports bans that folks have been doing. It's, oh, we want to make things better for girls that are doing sports. It's like, you want to make things better? Look into the sports themselves. Women do not have the same exact I'm not going to say same exact rights, but what
don't have
happens?
access.
They don't have the access. They don't have the same equipment. They don't have the same practice schedules.
They don't have the same pay.
Exactly,
Support.
the same support as a whole. So it's like, if that's what you want to do, you want to help the children, look at what's already in place, try to figure out how to better it. Don't just say, oh, we're going to get rid of this.
It's the same thing, again, that we're seeing here in Florida about protecting your children. When we come from a state that wants to cut funding for education, not provide, support for lower income families with children, to not extend, Medicaid to families who need health care, you're not protecting children. You're doing everything you can to attack children who need help. You're using these bills to get headlines and to get, right-wing supporters to fund your campaign so you can stay in office, and it needs to stop.
Well, last week, Republicans were all about, parental rights. It's the parental rights bill. Well, now you want to keep children prisoners in their body. You want to make the parents prisoners in the state and possibly in prison, and put doctors in prison. This is old school, but remember the doctors' purge of the 1940s, 1950s in Russia, in the Soviet Union. Stalin literally rounded up doctors who he didn't like. I know that's extreme,
immediately, 30% of the radicals would say, don't quote history or science to me because we don't believe in history or science. That's what their response to what you just said. Absolutely true, but they would reject it. You have to, I think we get it right here in our conversation, all of your points actually. Why are they doing this? You have to ask yourself, we're watching radical legislation. Why are they doing this? Well, first off, I think Idaho is trying to contend with the two heavyweights in radical crazy thinking, Florida and Texas. And Idaho finally shot a cannon off of going, oh, well, we'll compete with Texas and Florida with this bill. Why are they doing it? It doesn't have anything to do with parents. It doesn't have anything to do with children. It doesn't have anything to do with protecting. They're so radical because they think this culture war issue will get them elected.
Absolutely.
Back into the Senate majority, back into the House majority, and back into the White House in 24.
The scary thing is it might work.
And if we talk about, in the LGBTQ community, if we talk about anything else, if that conclusion is right, it seems right, it feels right, our gut says, I think that's right. Our focusing on anything else is of no value because your point is what the conclusion is going to be. They're going to take the House and the Senate, and they're going to take the White House, and then all bets are off. Donald Trump's probably not going to be the person that does it, and we're going to have a whole greater brand of crazy. And by the way, he may be coming from Florida also, just a different Floridian in 24. And remember, we've talked about it. Don't say gay in Florida in students on a non-existent problem for kindergarten through third grade. Then Texas says that DeSantis's brother in Texas, Governor Abbott, says we are going to prosecute parents of trans children that do anything on medical needs, including hormone replacement, and we are going to prosecute them for child abuse. I'm thinking George Bush and John McCain again. And now in Idaho, we are going to elevate medical protection from a healthcare doctor to the same level as felony crime like murder.
It's ridiculous.
Rape. I mean, it's horrible.
What's going on?
It's
going on to win an election. That's what we're watching. This is incredibly serious.
It just ticks me off. I'm just going to add really quickly. There's a part in this where it says that not only does it have to do with, hormone replacement therapy or even hormone blockers, but also, and this is where, like you said, that beachhead where they could get something else. And if the new language also makes providing a child with gender affirming care an issue, that could also include therapy, which in this community we know is needed, especially for our folks who are transgender.
Yeah, that is frightening.
Like that is what scares me even more about this.
And one final comment, because I know Cindy is aching to get on to the next story, or to move us on. The most distressing thing on this is I know all five of us are advocating in these areas and trying to raise the bell, trying to raise awareness. But seriously, I'm so concerned that the majority of the LGBTQ community are either not paying attention or, God forbid, worse, they're not really caring about what's happening.
They don't care. It
And
doesn't
And if
affect
that's the
them.
case,
Yeah, because it's kids, it's not adults.
you know, roaches for raid. I'm just saying.
Right. Well, that is our queer headlines for today. So let's catch up on the LGBTQ plus news surrounding COVID-19 with our special segment called Quarantine Quickies.
Queer News Tonight has reported on coronavirus every week since January 6, 2020. Tonight we report that as of today, more than 5,685,000 LGBTQ plus Americans have contracted COVID-19.
Queer News Tonight remembers the more than 69,000 LGBTQ plus Americans that have died from coronavirus.
But the news is improving because as of today, more than 557 million vaccination doses have been administered in the U.S.
That is our pandemic news for tonight. Next, we report on our partnership with Sunshine Cathedral, the world's largest queer church here in Fort Lauderdale. We're broadcasting from our permanent set here at Sunshine in supporting that partnership. Happening Out Television Network broadcasts the largest LGBTQ religious live broadcast in the world, as more than 30,000 watch every Sunday at 10:30 a.m. Eastern. Watch this.
Hi everybody, my name is Eddie Marti Kring and I'm your field and community organizer for SAVE, Safeguarding American Values for Everyone, and Sunshine Cathedral is my queer church.
Well, now we finish tonight's queer headlines with a segment we call LGBTQ plus Flash News.
And I'm going to flash you. LGBTQ plus Flash News. After Florida and Disney, GLAAD will grade film studios' political donations. Disney made the gays sad, so now GLAAD is mad. After the House of Mouse refused to take a stand, okay, we're stretching that, on Don't Say Gay, after having donated to politicians that supported it, GLAAD has announced that it will start measuring political donations in its ranking system. GLAAD President and CEO Sarah Kate Ellis said in a statement, quote, "No company that chooses silence over allyship should receive high scores from LGBTQ organizations, while nearly 200 anti-LGBTQ bills advance in states around the country, often targeting transgender youth. Corporations need to be held accountable for funding politicians that harm LGBTQ people, including their own employees, and for inaction on legislation that they can help defeat," end quote. She continued calling out Disney specifically by saying, quote, "LGBTQ inclusion is not just what happens on the screen. The Walt Disney Company and other media companies need to take immediate action in Florida and other states. Entertainment and media companies cannot profit from our stories and stay silent on the laws that discriminate against us." And I absolutely agree. I just hope they're able to track it, because there's so much dark money that goes into political action committees and things like that. But it's a good start and it's a good mission to have.
Yeah, I agree. And in terms of the ratings, HRC also needs to look at these political contributions when they do their corporate equality index.
We take a moment to congratulate Disney. They were a little slow to the conclusion, but they came to the right conclusion. And in general, we love our advocacy organizations in the LGBTQ community. But my question is, when GLAAD said this, my first reaction was, wait, you haven't been doing that all along?
Yes, exactly.
How you've come to it as late as Disney?
Exactly. But I'm also going to push back a little bit. Yes, Disney responded through their new CEO, but the response to me, as well as even some of the employees, not good enough at all. More could have been said. The wait for the response, what came out eventually was just, it was a Band-Aid. it was a Band-Aid on an open wound. Disney promotes, oh, we're very inclusive. Look at all this content we're giving you. You're giving me content, but then behind my back, you're donating dollars to politicians who are trying to hurt my community. Right. That is a problem. And I'm just going to add the former CEO, Bob Iger, I pronounce it wrong sometimes. He actually did tweet saying that this was something that he did not agree with and that this bill needed to be stopped. That's the former CEO of Disney. We're dealing with someone else now, and I kind of question his motives, just saying.
Well, I think it's important because the diversity, equity, and inclusion of all these major corporations has become a catchphrase, and it's their action that really makes a difference. And so I think we need to hold a higher standard, hold them accountable, and we need that DEI 2.0 ranking and looking where the money is actually going and what they're supporting to kind of look behind the scenes. So I'm for this, but small steps. Yes. LGBT.
Wish the steps were faster, though.
Right? Yes, absolutely.
I wish they were giant leaps, but.
LGBTQ plus flash news. Audience member storms out of Rent, yelling they didn't realize it was about gays.
Oh, it is?
Who would have thunk it?
Shocker.
Oh my God.
While nearly every gay person can tell you exactly how many minutes are in a year, apparently there are members of the straight community who have missed that the 26-year-old Broadway hit play Rent includes stories about LGBTQ plus people. The Bite My Thumb community group was recently performing a rendition at the Carriagework Theatre in Leeds, England. The group posted about one outraged audience member after saying, after a storming performance of Today for You, Tomorrow for Me, by Angel, a single audience member picked up their coat, rose from their chair, and left the auditorium. On exiting, the individual turned to a member of the front of the house and declared, "I didn't realize this show was about gays." We at Queer News Tonight wonder how the large rock must have been for that person to live under it. I mean, first of all, this story is it's very comical, but the idea that you went to see Rent and you didn't even look at the playbill or the storyline or know one thing about it, I guess maybe your friend bought the tickets.
Yeah. I just can't believe there would be this kind of cultural gap in a cultural hotbed like Leeds, England.
Well, that's just another empty seat in the theater for someone else to sit in, Take your coat and leave.
I'm not going to be popular here because I'm going to take the side of the guy that got up and walked out because 2 years ago, right before the pandemic began, I was at a Broadway musical called West Side Story, and I had to get up and walk out because I did not know it was full of Latino people. I had no idea. And 3 years ago, I had to get up and walk out of The Color Purple because I didn't know it had anything to do with black people. So I understand what. Oh, wait. Wait.
Speaking of Color Purple, your hair is on fire.
On fire.
She is giving life today, but she needs to be recolored. But no, what?
She? You refer to your hair as
everything
she?
is she on me.
Absolutely.
That's the pronoun of your
Pronoun
hair?
of that hair
Yeah.
is she.
Yeah, she's, or they when they're not behaving. Probably shouldn't have said that one, but no, back to this. You know what? When you're going to any show, you got to do even a little bit of research, even if it is something that, someone's giving to you as a gift. Like, do your research, know where you're going, know what the story is going to be about. That way you have a little bit of an idea of what you're getting yourself into. I mean...
And you can also shut up,
right?
Too,
exactly. Take a minute. Like, it's culture. Just see it. Figure out why everybody loves it, Right. Anyways, we're going to get back to the LGBTQ plus flash news. And I got a story for you. Hermione Granger throws shade at J.K. Rowling at British Academy Awards. 30 points to Gryffindor, people. All the points to Gryffindor. On Sunday, Emma Watson took to the stage to present the BAFTA for Outstanding British Film. She was introduced by host Rebel Wilson, who joked, quote, "Here to present the next award is Emma Watson. She calls herself a feminist, but we all know she's a witch," end quote. When she took to the stage, Watson said, quote, "I'm here for all of the witches, by the way," end quote. She goes on to embellish on how the British film industry celebrates people of all walks of life, and in a tone that many have taken to mean she may be excluding one former boss of hers. Watch this.
Our next presenter is Emma Watson. She's proud to call herself a feminist, but we all know she's a witch. I'm here for all of the witches. The films that are nominated tonight for Outstanding British Film in honor of Alexander Korda are ambitious, exciting, groundbreaking, inspiring. Our industry is blessed with so many diverse voices exploring ideas of sexuality, race, religion, and identity, different ways of being. Our creative talents are brave enough to explore the past because they're eager to face the future.
Goodness. I'm not going to go for the obvious that she looks amazing, but just, I love her. Emma Watson is amazing. She really is a true feminist. She fights for everyone, not just herself. I love her.
Again, the youth will lead us, and Emma is showing the old stodgy J.K. Rowling, who I feel like on every queer news I'm on, there's a J.K. Rowling story, which again, can we put her under a rock somewhere? But great work, Emma.
She's always put off this vibe, like ever since she was giving interviews during the Harry Potter series. And believe me, she will not hesitate to cut a witch.
And
We
she
get it,
does
John. We get it.
She does a good job at it, too.
You know, first off, you compliment Emma, but let me compliment Fat Amy. You are looking pretty awesome. And let me just contradict you just slightly about the number of times that we cover J.K. Rowling, which seems like about 900 times in the last year. Just yesterday, J.K. Rowling's called out, a leading winner of the BAFTA, of a BAFTA award about their ridiculous position of defining gender and how completely incorrect they were. She had no association with them at all, but tweeted in to talk about gender identity and how trans is not a real thing. Yeah, we cover
I wish we knew her true colors when Harry Potter first came out, and maybe she wouldn't be so rich.
You know what? I wish it too, but I can't not love the
I love Harry
series.
Potter.
Yeah, I love Harry
was my
Potter.
childhood.
I have a Gryffindor costume.
I'm a Ravenclaw.
Yeah.
I'm a Slytherin.
Of course you are. And of course you are.
I'm Slytherin.
Did you
From
do that?
across the table, sir.
Yeah.
From across the table. I see.
Oh, you're dead to me now. All right, let's move on. LGBTQ plus flash news. This is a great story. DC Comics reveals its Pride Month 2022 variant covers and a book coming. Superheroes are the ultimate outcast. Get it, LGBT? That's why you're a superhero. They're often from strange worlds or circumstances that cause most of society to ignore or even hate them. Yet they rise above those challenges for the good of all. It's no wonder that so many in the LGBTQ plus community have come to identify with them and their creators, many of whom are LGBTQ plus as well. And we know that. That's why DC Comics will again be releasing a special Pride anthology on May 31st. I wonder what happens on starting June 1st. I'm not quite sure. Coincidence, probably. Just in time, oh, there it is, for Pride Month. They have also announced that they will be releasing a special Pride-themed variant covers of fan-favorite characters like Nightwing, Superman, and Harley Quinn throughout the year. Exciting news. I love that DC is doing it. There's criticism of DC and to a lesser extent Marvel for pandering to our community. And I don't think that that's what applies here. Whether they sell 1 billion of the product that they create, the representation really is the issue, and we get lost in this, in all of the other arguments against it.
I can see where someone say, you know, yes, corporations do tend to pander to certain groups so that way they make sure they get that money. You know, during like History Month, it's Black Pride. During Women's History Month, it's all about women, but you don't hear anything outside of that. So I can see where that is, but this is comics. This is where the outcast came to. So I don't see it.
I'm willing to pay good money
Same.
for gay Superman. I just am.
I want all the gays. I want gay Harley Quinn all over me.
I think it's a great. I wasn't as aware of the popularity of superheroes in the gay community because I'm not a huge superhero fan. But the connection,
Or apparently not super gay.
It's okay. We'll keep you.
but the connection between being an outcast and then what superheroes represent. When I put that connection together, I see the power in it. So I don't find it to be pandering whatsoever.
I think your hair has superpowers, and I'm totally here for it.
It will cut a bitch.
Yeah.
Have you noticed John's been flirting with you through this entire show? I've noticed. Just saying.
Well, you know, we all know that when Wonder Woman first came out, she was a bit of a bisexual dominatrix. So
With that rope.
there
yes.
you have it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why? It's a reason she was tying everybody up. You wanted
Yeah.
the truth. Do you like it or no?
I did like those gold bracelets, but
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
And
you
the
got your gay
invisible
card
flame.
back. There it goes. There it is.
But Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
Yes, Wonder Woman.
Superman.
Yeah.
Okay, let's have some more LGBTQ plus flash news. Republican meltdown over Chasten Buttigieg gay teens Pledge of Allegiance to the pride flag. The conservative snowflakes are losing their minds. What has upset their delicate sensitivities this time? It's footage from Amazon's Mayor Pete documentary that came out last year. In the clip, Chasten Buttigieg leads a group of LGBTQ plus teens at a gay camp in a pledge to a rainbow flag. The pledge, which is a parody of the Pledge of Allegiance of the United States, calls for acceptance and inclusion. Conservative blogger and self-described theocratic fascist Matt Walsh apparently just found out about this scene, and he and the log cabin Republicans have been raging about it on Twitter, with followers using the tired phrase groomer when referring to Chasten. Perhaps many of them need to learn that statistically, most pedophiles are heterosexuals. Watch this.
All right. I pledge my heart. I pledge my heart to the rainbow. To the rainbow. Of the not so typical gay camp. Of the not so typical gay camp. One camp. One camp. Full of pride. Full of pride. Indivisible. Indivisible. With affirmation and equal rights for all. With affirmation and equal rights for all. Watch your heads.
Well, let me tell you, I think that is an awesome pledge, and I think that the country's Pledge of Allegiance should have things in there about acceptance instead of equal rights for y'all and not all.
Ooh. You know, Matt Walsh, the log cabin Republicans, you have a common denominator, old white men. And I just remind you, because I'm in that camp right along with you, but the difference between me and you, Matt, is I try to pay attention. This documentary has been out for 8 months. Boy, you're coming to the game way, way late, which is a reflection of being an old white man.
No, I just love that, of course, we pointed out here that statistically, most pedophiles are heterosexual. I hate the whole term of groomers
Right.
being thrown on our community. Like, no, like maybe groomers, but not, you know, just it's ridiculous.
Or
But
dog groomers.
Exactly. But then just to add the whole thing with the flag, very cute. I love it. Also, kids, if you were watching, you also know you technically don't have to stand up during the Pledge of Allegiance and actually like say, you don't have to do that in schools. It is something that is forced on children.
Right.
Wouldn't that be indoctrination?
It is.
Could be.
Right there? I'm just saying.
I also think the log cabin Republicans, they might not have good Wi-Fi. Maybe that's why I didn't get to watch the Amazon special. But this story about inclusion and uplifting children at a gay camp could not be a more of a heartwarming story that we need more of. So
Exactly.
Actually, the whole point.
I mean,
We're embracing our children,
Yes.
which is what you talk about, Governor DeSantis.
He doesn't want to embrace our children.
yes. So this is for the children.
Yes, it's for the
Exactly.
children.
We love
But
our
it probably it's their argument is probably not for the children. It's probably for something. Oh, right, to get reelected.
Yeah.
There you
Anything
go.
that mentions equality makes Republicans nervous and Tucker Carlson cry.
Right.
Just makes them cringe, sadly. But moving on, that is today's news for the LGBTQ plus community on the world's first and only daily LGBTQ plus evening news show. Is our community important to you?
Then help us by liking and subscribing. Ring the bell for updates. Share this news with your friends and family.
Post this broadcast in the many groups you are a member of. Tonight's stories about our community deserve the attention of your family and friends.
Queer News Tonight is the only live LGBTQ plus digital television show in the world that is out of the closet and into the headlines. We need your support.
Absolutely. And if our community is to grow, we must tell our stories and bring them to the attention of the broader world. This is the only place in the world that tells these type of LGBTQ plus stories in motion and sound. And that's the passion of the Happening Out Television Network and Queer News Tonight. I'm your anchor, Al Ferguson, and on behalf of these LGBTQ plus reporters, the anchors of Queer News Tonight, including Sobourney Barnes, Jeff Oliverio, Cindy Brown, and John Hayden. We will see you daily at 8 p.m.
Good night.
Good night.
LGBTQ plus news is vital for our community and for the broader world as a whole. We have enough enemies at Fox News. Tucker, Sean, and Laura are loud. We need passionate allies. Happening Out Television Network, Queer News Tonight, and It's Happening Out are literally out of the closet and into the headlines. Our community needs your support. Like this broadcast and subscribe now to ensure the growth of the